All right, guys, how's it going? This is Spencer with the Censorship Report, also with CFSM Media. I'm down here with the Luden and Kevin. So we're having some good discussion. I was wondering, like, why aren't I recording this? You, the viewers, want to see these type of discussions. So what were we talking about here a couple minutes ago? We've been talking about a mix of topics. You and I started on talking about abortion.
Yep.
And, all that, the laws and everything affected. And then we also got into states' rights. We got into other stuff, and then Luden came over and joined the conversation. So this has been some great discussion. I think both sides of the spectrum agreeing on stuff. So I'll let you guys take over. Let's continue the conversation. We were talking about before.
We're talking about vaccines.
Vaccines,
and
yes.
The concept of bodily autonomy. If it's your body, your choice, that implies to not just abortions. It applies to vaccines. It implies to a bunch of other implications.
Yep.
So. Yeah, and I'm also, when it comes to that, vaccines, it's my body, my choice. But when it comes to abortion, it's not your body because it's a child's body. Because basically, if you kill a pregnant woman, you get a double murder charge. Or if you hurt a pregnant woman and she miscarries, that's a murder charge. So is a baby really a baby only if you want it versus not wanting it? And that's a slippery slope. Everyone here is here because their parents are pro-life. So step up and stop spreading your legs and be responsible. I've had that with my own child where he wasn't here, he was a mistake, but we raised him because it's my child. And regardless of how he got here, he's one of my own, so you raise him like we were raised.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Do you have a counter argument for that?
It's not a counter argument, but when you mentioned that, I said that was your choice, whereas a lot of men, I feel like, don't make that choice. And the conversation just talks about her choice. As a man, I think we need to make the choice too of why aren't we in this conversation as, I know it's not our bodies, it's her body and her choice, but would she choose to keep that child if you were a viable father figure? Right. Whether you're married or boyfriend, girlfriend, I think that affects her choice a lot. Is does she have someone to help raise the child?
Yeah, exactly. And
I was raised by a single mom, so.
So was I. And the thing is that when it comes to pro-choice and abortion, but if a woman chooses to have the child, the man now has to pay even if he doesn't want it. So is that really fair for men? If you don't want us to speak on your body, then you shouldn't speak on our finances or resources. Myself and him, we both believe in responsibility regardless. But if you think a man is real grimy, why are you going to have a child and really push him to pay for a child he does not want, but he has no say? Or if he wanted the child and you're aborted, we still have no say, and that's the inequality that we have going on.
Yeah. That's a valid point. I've heard that a few times, but that was very eloquently spoken. So I think that boils down to, like we were talking about earlier, is the moral fabric of our company, where we have, and no offense to anyone who was a single mom or a single dad, but we're having a lot more of that in the country. Mm-hmm. And what is the cause? Our moral fabric of the country has fallen apart. How do we restore that moral fabric? Because like I've been doing tonight, throughout the day here, I've had great conversations with everyone. That's the start. But how do we get back to that moral fabric? Do you guys have your opinions on that?
Well, I'm not a religious man, but it's about morality. If you're a man or even an adult, you have to take responsibility for what you do. Regardless, if you commit a crime, you have to do the time. If you create a child, that child is now your responsibility. No different than any other thing. I mean, you were taken care of. And if you have this, how can I say, that so much higher crime now and murder rates, when we're telling women they could kill their own babies, what makes you think that we will respect anyone's life if you tell people to kill their own children? And if you see, as abortion has risen and a push for abortion, so has crime and murder, because we don't cherish life anymore.
Yeah. I think there was also the thing too with Planned Parenthood being in mainly minority communities.
79% to be exact.
Yeah. So that tells you something about the moral fabric of the people that were pushing it.
We agreed earlier, though, that same time, the drug war in the 70s.
Yep.
That same time period, we know that the government was flooding those same minority communities with crack, cocaine, and so drugs and broken homes, and now you have a lot of kids on the street doing that same thing. And it's an actual proven fact that trauma does get passed down genetically. So I think before we become parents, we need to address that you do need to heal. There is trauma.
Yep.
Like exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, see, and it's like we've come together, even though we have some differences, we're what America's supposed to be. not only
10
racially,
minutes ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not only are we racially different, but we have some difference of opinion, but we have such common ground. And that's the problem with America, where especially not you, but a lot of media likes to separate us out,
Yep.
find all our differences as opposed to what brings us together.
Definitely.
You know?
Definitely. And I mean, that's a valid point too. I mean, with a lot of the major media, I mean, we can look even further into who controls the major media.
Right.
Very small percentage of the community or of the world. I think it was like George Soros owns like
Yeah.
a certain percentage. You have other people that are getting in, and it's on both sides of the aisle. You have, I think the main issue is a lot of people hear propaganda on either side, and they just make their decision off of that as opposed to coming down and actually talking to people, talking the other side, because we've all agreed there is corruption in the government.
Yep.
We've agreed that, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that I think it's more states' rights is going to be beneficial than federal government overreach. And to allude to a conversation I had earlier today was, I mean, even with the COVID mandates, was do we, as a federal government, say feds are dictating this to the states, or do we let the states dictate it and obviously be within the Constitution?
We talked about this. The real power of the people is that we can vote out our governors.
Yep.
If this is something you are 100% committed to, politically speaking, we now have the power to make sure that you can vote them out.
Yep.
Not a lot we can do about the Supreme Court justice right now as citizens. And I think that's something I actually first thought about was, I mentioned universal term limits.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what post you have, if we just had a universal term limit, and that could be a good conversation. So I've seen some signs out here where they were very much against the Supreme Court's decision.
And that happens. Now, for Supreme Court, I know why it's lifetime, so they are outside the political arena. You can't touch them.
It's not democratic
Yeah.
at all.
Exactly, but it's like they're no longer political. They don't have to do things because a certain president's in office. It's not. They're completely out. Like for congressmen, senators, and of course presidents.
Re-election, they're not trying to do like raising funds for their campaigns or anything.
And honestly, with this decision, I think the left is what really caused it, because the leak. I mean, we can find all these people from January 6th, but you can't find one of the 52 clerks that they have that leaked this. And then when everybody went to, which broke a law, federal law, to intimidate these judges, they probably pushed this ruling saying, if we don't overturn it now, we're going to prove to them that they can intimidate us.
Yep.
So that may be why they said, we're going to do it now to show you can't intimidate the law. They may cause their own downfall, just
Well, look-
like a lot of people have done.
Yeah, and look at what just happened the day before that ruling came through. It was the New York versus Bruin case, where the Rifle Association over there sued over the basically the carry rules. So
In New York,
you had to have good cause to get a concealed carry permit. Same thing with California; they do the same thing. So that just got shut down. So now it's not shall issue, but self-defense is the reason for getting it, or just because
Yeah,
you
'cause they
want
said
to carry.
defend my property or my person wasn't
Yeah.
good enough excuse. So if there's a mob coming at us and I have my family,
Yeah.
I have no rights to defend myself because we're the cops.
Yeah.
By the
Oh,
time
the
the
Supreme-
cops come,
yeah.
you're already dead.
Supreme Court already actually didn't. Sorry to interject, and I'll let you go next. The Supreme Court already ruled that the police have no right to protect you.
Yep, in 2005.
Yep, 2005. So that is not within their roles and their responsibility. They can, but I mean, they don't have to.
Right. I'll say this, last night I didn't even know about this protest until I got off work, worked 18 hours on 3.5 hours of sleep. I was very angry when I found out about this, but on an emotional level, if I had come here and that was happening, what was last night, I would have been operating on an emotional level, but 24 hours later I'm here and I've had good conversations with my family and see where they lie. Like, it's easy to just talk to people that are at these events, but I've reached out to everyone I know, friends and family, and had this, and actually looked up the laws, done some research. So I have a completely different, just trying to get a more informed opinion now than just I'm angry and I want to be part of that.
Yeah. I think too. For me personally, after getting a little bit of that spice inhaled last night, might have had a little bit of brain fog from that, and. I mean, obviously, if you look at my channel here, I do have the more clickbaity title for what happened last night. But the whole point of me being down there is to actually have these good conversations with everyone, to talk to both sides of the aisle and see where we all stand and where we can come to common ground as Americans. So, is there? I know the movement's starting. They're doing some walking or marching around the Capitol here. I know you've been looking that way, so I think you might want to go and join them.
I just wanted to see. This is mainly here as a support.
Okay.
Be a witness.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you're doing with your camera. Like, I want to make sure that both sides of the story get told. Like you said that earlier. That's one of the first things you said is there's two sides to this story, and here you are with your camera trying to capture that.
Yep. Definitely.
And I'm on the other side as an observer. I'm pro-life, as we stated, but just to see, because a lot of media, I've been in other instances where the media has altered the story.
Yep.
So, and I've been there and said, how do you know? Because I was there.
Yep. Well, even some of the corporate press won't do this, but I was talking to some of those guys over there last night, and they're like, "Oh, insurrection," like making those type of jokes because like January 6th was. So can't we call it by definition to this? Yeah. I mean, to be fair to my viewers, you guys can see what I've posted on this. At this rate, my opinion on it is that there were some bad actors. I guess Antifa showed up after the unlawful assembly was called, and that's when it was alleged that there was vandalism over on the memorial grounds. You don't desecrate the Veterans Memorial. That's just not cool. Right. And the fact that, assuming these guys actually challenge cops with rifles, that's just asking for trouble. You don't instigate, you don't do that. So I'm glad that tonight has been very peaceful, and I hope it stays that way, and that the instigating parties on either side don't actually come down here and ruin a peaceful event.
And I'm pretty sure those groups don't do it for free. I'm pretty sure like they get paid to do something like that, and that's just taking attention away from what the unifying core is about.
During the George Floyd riots down here, you had people getting bussed in from all around the country, and that's why there were some out-of-state charges for people coming to whatever state and rioting. So, and I mean, that's a stark difference between the last administration and this one. Will we see any of those federal charges? Who knows? Yeah. We'll leave it up to the DAs for now and the AG's office, but we don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. If you enter the building or try to harm somebody purposely instead of defend yourself, I don't care which side you're on.
Yep.
You know, I said, I don't care. Even if I'm against you, I said, hey, this is if they're in the right, they're in the right. Yep. You know, I don't care. It's my homie. It said, hey, you were wrong in these charges. I don't see. For me, I'm like, I don't care. It's like it has to be, law for everyone, but law for no one.
And laws can change. I mean, it's frustrating when we hate a law personally. Maybe it's because of personal value, or you mentioned this earlier, religious values. But it's on us to actually make that change happen, to vote and put pressure on our elected officials to make that happen. It's just that's not the way to do it.
To be fair, I would even take that one step further, and I'm blanking on the amendment right now, but it gave our Senate position for the federal office. It took it away from the House to vote on, and the legislature over here, and gave that directly to the people. I think that right needs to go back to the House of Representatives, so it's not Maricopa County, it's not Tucson, it's not Los Angeles, it's not name any major city that is representing or is getting that representation. It's everyone is represented equally between the counties, and your state will have better representation that way. That, I know, is a little off topic for what we were talking about, but that's just what made me think about that. So that's my, I guess, my bias on that. So
Nothing wrong with that.
editing this in, we just had a really good discussion.
Insult to injury.
Yeah. Rape and incest, we're cool with abortion.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Same thing. Okay. Yeah. For me, I'll just say the Louisiana law that we were discussing earlier, which didn't allow it for anything. I'm against that.
Yeah.
Minimum, you have to have it for emergency medical procedures where the woman's in danger. I understand from a moral perspective there, if for an incest or rape situation where
You're bringing a child into the world whose father was a rapist. That's setting them up for further abuse of their own children.
And the hate that the woman would have for her child, what kind of, that I'm against. They say you shouldn't be like, regardless of life. And there has to be reasons. You have to be rational.
And there are some people on the other end of the spectrum that say regardless, they should have the kid, but that is definitely, I can see it from that perspective, and that's why I empathize with the other side there, where it's, putting a woman through that after they've been raped, or they had some and some crazy style shit happen to them.
Woman could get in a car accident, and then medically speaking, it would kill her.
Yeah.
to have a child.
Yeah, and I agree.
And
saying,
before she has sex, she needs to make that very loud and clear to the man, saying, if I get pregnant, I'm not keeping this because that will literally kill me.
and that's when you say you need
If
to
she
have.
really wanted a child in vitro,
Yeah.
if you're willing to pay however much money
That,
to have a...
there's a valid point you made about that earlier. The male's right on that.
Yeah.
You know, I think too. Like, I think it needs. I mean, when we're talking about equality, it should be up to both parties to come to a conclusion. And if, like, say for example, you're dating someone, right? You accidentally
That's
knock
one
her.
of the first questions is, do you want children?
Yeah.
Or what are your opinions on children?
Because if you knock your partner up
Uh-huh.
and you want a kid but she doesn't, you have no right.
You have no right.
Yeah. Where does
You
where
made your
does
choice to proceed on
yeah.
with full knowledge that was what... You can't change her mind on that. It's not
Yeah.
your job.
Or if she didn't tell you.
You respect
Yeah.
respect that, and if you don't respect that, find another swipe right on another girl.
Exactly.
Some girls, some women, they don't tell you, or they'll say, "Oh, I got rid of the baby," and you don't want to have a child.
Sure.
But now I have to pay for a child. It's like, then if you want to have that choice, you can't demand that this man pay for this child either.
That's the other illegal argument. If she like, I had a situation where a friend of mine basically had that similar situation happen where she was on birth control until she wasn't, did not notify him, and normally they do. Let's just say raw dog. I'm probably gonna have to blur that for for YouTube here, and knocked her up.
Sure.
But didn't know that she got rid of the IUD. So that's when it's like, from a legal perspective, she didn't tell me,
Sure.
and I wouldn't have done this besides that, because he was trying to avoid paying
Add on to that, you
restitution.
mentioned contraceptives.
Yeah.
We live in an age where there is the male birth control pill, vasectomies. It's in its infancy right now. There are
you
side
read about
effects.
that? The reason why it got crushed right now, because I think the vast majority of men now are impotent or sterilized.
We are at a lowest point of testosterone in I think the last 40 years. A lot of estrogen in our food because soy is in everything. When I go shopping, soy produces estrogen, and estrogen kills testosterone.
I know it does.
You know,
Yeah. See, and I don't eat a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not one of those supernatural, everything has to be organic thing.
Right.
Because I like Popeyes. But I make sure that I keep a lot out of my system.
cut soda out of my
No Raisin Canes? That's my
I
favorite.
know, I like that too, but Popeye's my favorite.
All right.
Yeah.
Like, when I realized they had these out here, I'm like, okay, I'm going. Because I've had them in other states, and like, that is really freaking good food. So.
And it's like women are the gatekeepers to our next generation. So it's like saying, you know, be careful who you sleep with. You know, just because it's there doesn't mean you should take it.
Sure.
You know, that's the thing. And when you're young, that's very difficult unless
Especially in college.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say college and high school is literally when your hormones are at the most. You're the most fertile you're ever gonna be. You're potent. You're ever gonna be.
Yeah.
So I'm 30. You know, I'm at the point where it's like I know I don't want kids.
31 here.
31.
52.
You don't look it.
Don't look it.
Just 53. Just turned 53. Sorry. Yeah. So I've been here through the whole thing. I was alive when this first started. You know, I was 4, but heard about it when this all started. But even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she said that the precedent was wrong. You know, about it.
And that's where I think we all three agreed on the state aspect to it.
Just
10th
like with
Amendment.
gun laws. I said they're mad that it's like gun laws. I said, hey, it's on the state. If you don't like it, vote in new people or go to a state that allows it.
I'm gonna say I want everyone to own machine guns, cannons. I mean, there is actually an ATF form for a tactical nuke.
More than just having the gun themselves, I wish education. You know, back in the 50s and 60s, they used to have you bring guns to school and they train you how to strip it. They teach you how to safely handle it. You hear about kids getting shot at home, probably no training, no discipline. And again, that's the parent's choice. You have to have it responsible.
I think
Full gun ownership.
I think gun safety training in schools, that will be helpful. And it's always, you know, I'm gonna dive into a separate issue here with Uvalde and any of the mass shootings. It's interesting how our politicians, and this goes to the corruption, have armed security at all the schools. You have dedicated entrances and exits, so you're not gonna have anyone getting in. If they do try to get in, they're going in through a funnel and they're gonna be ripped to shreds.
Exactly. But the problem is, too, they don't bring up the dozens killed almost every weekend in Chicago, L.A., New York, Detroit. I said these are all the highly restrictive gun state and gun areas where you can't carry or do anything. Has the highest gun crime. Here, open carry. How many people? Yeah, we have our shootings, but you don't hear about. Oh, Phoenix, there's 60 people that got shot because they know
It wasn't gang violence.
Yeah, because they know everybody here has the potential to have a weapon. I said everybody's very friendly when you know that you can't just walk in a gun free and you know no one has it.
It's an evening factor, especially for women.
Yeah.
Exactly, especially for women to have it, you know, for rape and everything else. All the women I know, they carry. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, unless we got anything else to add. We're doing, here, I'm gonna throw up the horns.
Could you text that to me?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was gonna say, when I date women, I get them gifts of weapons. You know,
Yeah.
like, here's some brass knuckles with spikes on them.
Yeah.
You know, here's mace.
My girlfriend is huge pro 2A and everything, and she knows I'm down here tonight. She's like, be careful. I'm like, I'm strapped, don't worry, but I'm never planning on using it, you know, unless I'm in a life or death situation where I have to defend myself. And like I said earlier, shoot to stop the threat. You never want to be in that situation, but you know, I think.
But on the other end of that, people who are unarmed, like, no, they came here wanting that situation to happen, and I'm like, no.
On both sides, man. Like I mentioned.
Looking what happened to Kyle, we mentioned Kyle, because look how he was dragged through the coals.
Yeah.
One thing I read about was how he was starting to become a political pawn on everyone's chessboard.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone wanted to take pictures with him. Everyone.
I saw him at America Fest.
You know, those Proud Boys. Yeah. That was all manipulated by their lawyer.
Yeah, and that kind of screwed him over a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you see the interview we did with Elijah Schaefer?
No.
So I've interviewed Elijah before from Real America's Voice. Really nice. Not Real America's Voice. Sorry, Blaze TV. I interviewed Ben Berkwam from Real America's Voice. But yeah, I've talked to a lot of those guys who've actually had communication with them, and just hearing some of the stories, which I'm not going to share publicly. They were really trying to run that guy through the ringer, and it was public information here, partially because of his old lawyer.
Sure. And it could have happened to anyone.
Yeah.
It happened to someone that young. I know, personally, I don't think he should have been there at all.
But everyone else was.
Sure.
So that was why they dismissed that charge.
Just because he was somewhere he wasn't supposed to be, that's not a crime. And the crime was he had the Second Amendment. He had the right and the freedom to defend himself. And he was assaulted first. He didn't shoot first.
And he was asked to be there by the owners of the.
Backwards,
Yep.
You know, wasn't moving forward.
Yeah, and he was asked to be there by the owners of the car dealership. Although if you saw them squirm up on stage or on the stand when they were asking questions, and they had all the evidence and everything, it was just like, because those guys
are in the spotlight. They're in the spotlight.
And also because they may or may not have been committing tax fraud. Ugh. IRS doesn't like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's their choice to do that. If they get caught, and that's on them.
So like
responsibility.
Like I'm gonna say, I'm shilling for Rakita Law right now. Check him out. He's like pro constitutional guy, but he's got some good takes on stuff. I think you would agree with some of the stuff he says. Maybe not others, but he's entertaining at least.
Well, so it's interesting you mentioned the Constitution. I believe that the Constitution was originally meant to be updated every 10 years. That was Thomas Jefferson, one of the draft authors. So again, we have laws that are hundreds of years old that are still valid in court to this day.
Founding fathers had some foresight. I'll just say that.
So, well, even if we don't agree about a lot about what they did, I do agree that we need to change laws. If we don't like laws, we change them. Yep. It's not about changing who's in office.
I agree.
It's changing the laws.
And if you can change the laws at your state level and abide by the Constitution, yep. I'm all good. I'm all good for that.
And that's why I think, having it be left up to the states, we have a lot more local influence on that.
Yeah. Obviously, and here's my take on the federal government. Federal government should only exist for national defense, settling disputes between the states.
Not to be the nanny state like 1984 at this point.
We were getting close to that.
We might already be there.
Yeah. So lost my train of thought. National defense, settling issues between the states, and civil rights. That's it. Anything outside of that, all these like rogue agencies, ATF, anything like that, I'm out.
Crisis relief from all these natural disasters that are happening,
That would be under national defense, I would argue.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make the argument for that.
They're attacking us or foreign and domestic enemies.
Yeah. And remember, we the people are the militia.
Sure.
So that's why we have that right to carry. I mean, our forefathers, like I said earlier, I think they envisioned that because you had the mayor of New York or whatever saying, we want to make it all only for muskets because that was a lot at the time.
Yeah.
The constitutional argument for that is our founding fathers wanted us to have the same weapons as what the military has now.
We're talking about local militias, and the idea of a militia was you are an equivalent force.
You and I could get called up for service anytime.
Yeah, like literally what's happening in Ukraine right now, where they just drafted every man over 15, 16 who could fight to defend.
And gave them fully automatic weapons, and the left was cheering about it.
Crash course boot camp.
Week of training, maybe.
Yeah, crash course boot camp.
Yeah. So.
There's people here, though, who are 20, 21. I know one guy who went over there, and he just expected to be given all that because he wanted to fight. And they're like, no, we just want people who have actual experience, military careers, that's who we want over here. We're not just going to take anyone that walks in.
Yeah.
And if you want to help, you can drive a truck, you can deliver supplies.
And avoid landmines.
Yeah.
That was the main thing. There's been, when the Russians came in, they planted a lot of landmines.
Yeah.
Shout out to Funker 530, great channel. They do like a review on that. They're all military guys, so that's actually where I've been kind of following along. They look at the maps and everything like that, and then say, here's the breakdown. Here are where Russian forces are now. Here's what the Ukrainians are doing. It's honestly, it's interesting for me. So. I know this is like the extra credit portion of the video here. This is just kind of, we were talking and then moved on. This is probably coming through in the mic too, so it is what it is. We're at a protest, so yeah, guys. Hey, again, pleasure having the conversation with you. I will probably see you at metal shows if you're there.
You too.
And then, sir. Oh, you got some fans coming out?
Yeah, he's pro-life. He came to check it out.
Okay. So anything else you guys want to add before we go check out the rest of this?
That's it. I'm good.
All right. Hey, guys, I really appreciate it tonight.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you all.
Yep.
And I guess we'll have some fun down here tonight talking with everyone. So, again, thanks for watching, everyone. Like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And do you guys have any Instagram handles, anything you want to say on there? I always give my interviewees the option to do that.
I don't have Instagram.
All right. So no other shows, anything like that. All right. So like, share, subscribe, guys. I'll catch you all next time.